Today, I want to share with you, if you do this one thing, you can have anything in the world that you want. And I'm talking about feeling amazing, having amazing relationships, having tons of money, having the lifestyle that you want. If you do this one practice, you can have any of that and all of it, actually. So I discovered this for myself years ago when I was really, really struggling. About 20 plus years ago, I had a lot of things on the outside world, other than being in massive amounts of financial debt, that were going pretty well. But on the inside, it was a total struggle fest. I was depressed. I wanted to die. The only time that I got a reprieve from what you would call now probably like depression was doing extreme sports, rock climbing, running through the mountains, doing free soloing without ropes and gear, and climbing sheer rock faces high in the Rocky Mountains outside of Boulder, Colorado. And that was the only time that I really felt better. Sometimes connecting to other people or in romantic relationships, but most of the time I was still just really, again, I wouldn't even call it depressed. It was just struggling. I hated my experience of life. So I was desperate to get help. Now, I was not a spiritual person back then. I was a self-espoused atheist, and I didn't really enjoy surrendering to things, believing that there was like some higher power or some God or something like that. I was very connected to nature, and that in a way was a higher power, you could say. But even then, that was like a little bit of sketchy territory. Being open wasn't a big thing of mine back then. I was highly defensive and highly reactive. All this to say, I was in such an amount of struggle, it created a level of humility inside of me. So I started looking to learn from people how I could feel better. I went to various therapists. I went to men's groups. I met a spiritual teacher. I just started kind of getting open because I was so freaking desperate. And what's great about desperation actually is that it creates a burning desire to feel differently or to get something. So desperation in a way has some really excellent qualities to it. It has us open up and shift in a certain way. I also had a certain level of what we call programming that came from my parents and my early childhood environment. Right? And we all have this. We're all programmed. And what's fascinating about this is that we can reprogram ourselves using certain practices in this one that I'm sharing with you now. So what finally happened to me is I met this remarkable person who's my spiritual teacher to this day, 17 years ago. 17 and a half years ago. And I loved what she taught. And it wasn't like I wanted to become her, but she had me feel better. And organically, I just did everything that she said to do. And when I did that, kind of like a robot in some ways, I was emotional, like my heart was in it, so it wasn't totally robotic. But that's one of my strengths is that I can be very disciplined and arguably rigid about things. As my friends remind me, I'm like a programmable robot. So I just did everything she said to do. And lo and behold, in a pretty short amount of time, I think it was like 6 months to about 2 years, my life was starting to transform remarkably. I felt better. I had a connection to myself. Now, I had to let a lot of things go because I was in a relationship that ended. I lost the place that we shared together. I moved into an ashram. I was unemployed for a year. I was in massive amounts of financial debt, and I just lived off of unemployment for a year to live at this ashram. I mean, everything was upended. But I felt freaking amazing, and it laid a foundation to have a successful career and financial abundance and better relationships and most importantly, feeling really connected and happy within myself, regardless of what's going on around me. So here's what you do. If you do this one thing, you can get anything that you want. Find someone who has done what you have done and do everything they tell you to do. Now, why does this work? It works because it worked for them, right? Now, you're not going to live your life exactly like they lived their life, but they have achieved something, regardless of what it is. You want to make millions of dollars, fine. You want to feel amazing about yourself, great. You want to have amazing relationships, fantastic. You want to find the partner of your dreams, fantastic. Find someone and do what they did and just become them. Become a robot and just do everything that they tell you to do. And secondly, do it with your heart. Get emotionally invested in it. Now, what typically happens for people is that they don't want to do certain things that people tell them to do who have gotten what they have gotten what you want, right? And the reason for that is that our programming. When we are, wherever we are raised, whatever environment, physical environment and emotional environment by our parents, we were taught and programmed in a certain way to be a certain way. You'll probably notice that if for people that haven't done a lot of reflection or haven't done different things or thought different ways in their family, they kind of end up with the same results. They end up with the same kind of relationships, same kinds of career, the same kind of internal experience, which there's nothing wrong with that. It's just that for some people that can feel very limiting. For some people, it's glorious and that's fantastic. Good for them. And for some of us, it's probably you're not satisfied with the limiting aspects of your life. So find someone and just do everything they tell you to do. And at times you'll feel resistant to it. That's not about them, right? That's about us in our programming that has us stay limited. And in order to reprogram ourselves, we're going to have to lean in and pierce the resistance that we feel towards it. Know that it's not personal about that person or that thing. It's about us. And that's the act of reprogramming, is that we'll hit certain moments where we're defensive, where we're resistant, and we need to persevere through those and remain open, humble, and do what we're told, right? In our order of brahmachari, in our order of monks and nuns that I'm in, we have a quality called obeisance, which is obeying, which is a triggered word for most people. And there is a glory to obeying, right? Especially if you're after getting something that someone else has and having that own experience for yourself. For us, we are about service, we are about enlightenment. So obeying a certain practice, certain rules give us liberation. It's the same thing that discipline brings freedom, ironically, right? So if we're disciplined towards doing one thing, and that's in this case, following the teachings of someone, the strategy of someone that has what you want, being disciplined about doing it for a finite amount of time, then looking at your results, you will get it. It's the only way that you wouldn't get it is if their strategy is flawed. So if they're a great teacher, they may have gotten something, but if they're also a great teacher, follow it and do what they've done. The third point I want to leave you with here is that some people in your world might think you're crazy, might judge you for what you're doing. Look at their results in their life and see if you want to have their results. Usually the people that are judging us for decisions that we're making around how we're expanding our life or transforming our life have very limited results in certain ways. Again, fine, but they're putting their own programming onto us and wanting to keep us the way that we are so that we stay connected with them. You might have to say goodbye to some relationships. It doesn't mean you stop loving them or caring about them, but it may mean that the relationship shifts. If your results are going to be more expanded and more gratifying to you, right? So I hope this was helpful. Do this one thing and you will get it. I'll see you next time.